Hello everybody, welcome to a World of Warships video. Today's video is another video looking at the Tech Tree Destroyer line, British Tech Tree Destroyer line. This is the Tier 3, the Valkyrie. So I don't normally do a review of Tier 3 ships, but there's not a lot of British destroyers to review. So here we go. So much like the Castor at Tier 5, we're just going to do a quick review to look across the other destroyers to see where it fits in. Now, the Tier 3 meta is quite different. So, for example, we get to the Dirtsky, which is the Russian Tier 3. It is quite different from, let's say, the Podvoitsky, which is very much in line with the way the Russians go. I don't know about the Fruarang. Yeah, so the weeks and sort of which the American Tier 3 is very much in line with how American destroyers operate up till about Tier 5. And at Tier 6 they sort of change. So let us go and do some stats. So these destroyers have been neglected, so that this stats review is without any blueprints being used, without any upgrades or anything like that. Hopefully. Yes. Right. Okay, so the Valkyrie, it's got some ship info, which I'm sure is entirely interesting. Right, survivability, 7,900 hit points. So citadel protection, 5%, 10%, 3%, 3%. Those are the protections, those, believe it or not, are exactly the same protections that the Acasta has. It does 33.62 knots, so 33.5 knots, 7.25 seconds to get there. Maximum traverse speed is 9.7 degrees per second, which is pretty quick in the turn time. That's time to shift the rudder across, 3 seconds. Isn't too bad. So with the, probably what we'll do is we'll compare it, and I didn't with the Castor, I don't think I'd compared it with the German destroyer, but let's compare it with the German destroyer, because the German destroyer is, well, there. So the German destroyer has the same levels of protections, 5%, 10%, 3%, 3%, but it has an extra, if I can remember, 400 hit points, which at 8,000 hit points, an extra 400 hit points represents 5%. That sounds quite high. Could definitely be the case. Right, it does 33 knots instead of 34 knots, takes 9 seconds to get there. Maximum traverse speed 9.2 instead of 9.7 with a 2.7 second rudder shift. So faster to swing the rudder across, but slightly slower in the turn. Probably not a lot to notice in the difference. Let's go compare this with the weeks. So there's the Valkyrie, we will compare it with the weeks. And it is, the weeks has the same number of hit points essentially, 7.9 instead of 7,800. Same protections. 34 knot speed rather than, I believe, 33 for the Valkyrie. Yep. 9 seconds acceleration, which is much slower than the Valkyrie at the 7. Maximum traverse speed 9.4 instead of 9.7 with 3 second turn time. So it turns a little bit slower and it has the same rudder shift. Let's go have a look at the Wakataki. The Wakataki is actually surprisingly, well, not surprisingly, the destroyer with slightly fewer hit points, 100 less than their Castor. It has the same protections, 35 knots, 2 knots faster, 7.8 seconds to full speed, which is roughly the same, just a little smidgen more. Much better turn. Maximum traverse speed is 10.7 rather than 9.7 with a 3.3 second rudder shift. So that is certainly the most agile of the destroyers. The Zerky, which is basically a torpedo barge from memory, has less hit points, same protection, so it has 200 less hit points. Does the same speed, 33 knots, a bit slower on the acceleration, 9.4 rather than 9.7 degrees per second in the turn, but a slightly quicker turn time at 2.7 seconds rather than 3 seconds. So that's a 0.3 second difference, which is you're probably not going to notice in the game. The Fruarang has more hit points, faster speed, slower acceleration, maximum traverse speed of 9.8 degrees per second rather than 9.7. but in this, so it's certainly the most agile. Well, no, apart from the Japanese, of course, but certainly the more agile of those that aren't completely hopeless with guns. And yeah, so the Valkyrie, sorry, I better get it right. The Valkyrie doesn't have great speed, has good acceleration, has relatively good turning, but doesn't carry a lot of hit points. But then again, they're destroyers. Let's go have a look at the guns. Guns. 102mm guns, so I think those are the same as on the another Caster's 120mm. It's got 6-second reload, 6.72 kilometer range, 260 or 280 HE or AP damage. So basically, British shells are pretty much like that, with a 2% chance of setting a fire, which is pretty pathetic. So yes, its guns are average. Let's have a look at the weeks. It's got the same caliber, it's got 4 of them, 6-second reload, 6.9 rather than 6.72, 6.9 kilometer range, does the same damage. So the guns on the Valkyrie are as good as the guns on the Weeks. It's very interesting, isn't it? And let's go for the G101, 5-second reload, slightly shorter range, 6.6 rather than 6.72, much better AP damage. So yeah, so HE damage is less, but AP damage is much greater. Typical German stuff. Yeah, so basically better guns all round. The Zerky has 5-second reload, pretty short range. I think about the same damage, 2.6 and 2.8. It's just got a faster reload, so it's a little bit better of a gunboat, just because of that slight reload benefit. Whereas the Furorang has, well, pretty much the same. It has slightly better damage, 2.83 and 3.05, but still, rather than 4 of them, 6-second reload, slightly better range, so basically 0.18 of a kilometre further than the Valkyrie. So yeah, so I mean the guns aren't great, but they're not as the Orchestra guns are noticeably worse than the tier, whereas these guns are sort of slightly worse than the best in the tier. Yeah, the Japanese guns, they hit pretty hard with 4% fire chance and 310 HE damage, 6.3 pathetic range, 6.3 kilometres, and 7.5 seconds reload, which is basically another 25% longer. So those are the guns. Let's go have a look at some torpedoes. So it's got 2x2 launchers. I hope they are centerline mounted, because the Campbelltown they are not. Yes, they are centerline mounted. The Campbelltown are not centerline mounted. So let's go find these. They are going to be able to be fired individually. Let's assume that, and we'll get that confirmed. 34-second reload, 2,400 damage, 6-kilometre range, which is pretty good at this tier, and 61 knots. So the torpedoes, 12% flooding chance. The torpedoes aren't too bad. In fact, let's go find the Wakataki. In fact, they're not too far off the Japanese torpedoes. So 32-second reload on these. The Japanese reload speeds go way up the more powerful the ship gets. So they're pretty quick at this tier. 2,500, so 100 points more damage, 6.3 kilometres rather than 6-kilometre range. Same speed, 61 knots, and a chance of flooding is 4 points better at 16% rather than 12%. So the Valkyrie torpedoes aren't too bad. The Weeks torpedoes, well, there's more of them, a lot more of them. They reload a little bit slower. They do the same damage, but they're shorter range and they're a lot slower. So 55 knots rather than 61. A G101. This is the ship that has torpedoes pointing out all directions. Yeah, good luck with that. 32-second reload's pretty quick though. 2,500 damage, but yeah, you're firing sort of individual torpedoes and you're having to rotate the ship in it. Although it sounds like a good idea, it's not really. 5.4 kilometre range, so same as the Weeks. 59 knots rather than 61, but only a 10% chance of flooding. So basically, sort of fairly lackluster torpedoes. Reasonable damage, but That's about it. Zerky has 5 times 2, so it has a ton of torpedoes. It is a bit of a torpedo barge. But at a 3.6 kilometre range, there's no point in comparing that with anything. Right, the Fuarang, 6.3 kilometre range, same as the Japanese, which is pretty good, 62 knots rather than 61, so fastest torpedoes. Highest chance of flooding apart from the Japanese, so much higher chance of flooding with the Fuarang versus the Valkyrie. So this is at 15%, the Valkyrie is at 12%. 3,000 damage rather than 2,400, so in a 33-second reload, which is pretty quick. So those torpedoes are pretty good. They are deep water torpedoes, so don't be expecting them used against destroyers. But at this tier, these narrow sets of torpedo tubes, this is 2 times 2, along with a small sort of relatively maneuverable ship, means that they are actually pretty poor for use against destroyers. Surface detection of the Valkyrie is 5.22, so it has a 6 kilometre torpedo range, 5.22 surface detection, so it has a reasonable 0.8 kilometre stealth bubble. And that's not great, but it's still, well, there you go. Right, so the Fuarang, it has a 5.16 kilometre, so basically 0.04 of a kilometre better surface detection. Obviously has longer range torpedoes, which is good on it. The G101 surface detection is 5.34, so that is 0.12 worse, and that gives it a 0.06 kilometre potential stealth torping range, which, yeah, forget it. Okay, take it from me. I have a 0.1 kilometre potential stealthing range in the Leander, and I can tell you it doesn't work. Right, okay. This has a surface detection exactly the same, 5.22. Has slightly longer range torpedo, so it has the best stealthing bubble. As for the weaks, which does get AA, 9 points of large calibre A damage, 5.16 kilometre range, 5.4 kilometre torpedo range means that your margin of error is too thin. So you may try to stealth torp, but you'll spend a lot of time getting detected. Just so you know. Right, let's go to the Valkyrie. The Valkyrie has a number of options. So now that we've done the stats review, let's go sort out some of these options. Obviously it doesn't need any AA blueprints because it has no AA. Good luck. Okay, so we've got the same choice that we had with the Valkyrie. Ship hit points, max speed, and torpedo traverse speed, which means on the other side you get the only benefit is a slightly faster reloading torpedo. They reload pretty quick at this tier anyway. Its hit points, its speed is not great, and its hit points aren't great. So much like the Valkyrie, much like the Acasta, I would basically do that. Right, let's go have a look at the ship details. It has fuel smoke, it has 2 of them. That's pretty impressive. So that's pretty good, right? So at tier 5, the Valkyrie had smoke, and that's pretty unusual for a tech tree destroyer, or any tech tree ship apart from like the Emerald. But yeah, to have fuel smoke at tier 3, the Campbelltown has smoke, and it makes it a pretty dangerous ship. So it could be interesting to see how this plays out. And talking about playing it out, let's go and play it out. I won't put a commander in the ship, and the reason for that is that any commander you stick in a ship at tier 2 is unlikely to be worth a lot. So I'm going to load it up with some performance enhancing consumables, basically a little bit of extra stealth, some extra maneuverability, and some extra reload. Let's have a look. We have turret traverse was not something we never really looked at. So it turns at 9.7 degrees per second, and its turrets traverse at 12 degrees. So there's a bit of headwind there. So I'd probably do pretty much the same as what I did with the Valkyrie. There's only one option there. I'll just take that, which means there's only one option here. We'll take that. I'm more of a manoeuvring than a repair guy. We'll pop a camo on it. And, well, given the time of day, Could be a bit of a wait, but oh no, actually it's the Asian service, so it's probably all on at the moment, or people might be having their dinner. Getting a few racks up there, so getting 11 people, 12 people at tier 3. Hopefully we'll pop into a game fairly shortly, which would be quite useful. Right, so so most of these games are short and frantic, which is, well, sort of the way I like it really. So let's see how it goes. We're in battle, big race. It's quite a tough map because depending what the enemy does, there is a degree of random chance that can throw you under the bus. So let's see whether or not we end up on the bus or under it. What have we got? So it is a bit of a torp boat, stealth torping boat. Got a couple of battleships, and we've got, looks like, a couple of destroyers and the cruisers in the middle. Something to avoid. Okay, here we go. So we're going to go for the ACAP. We're going to rotate our guns. We don't have an engine boost. We have 3 opposing destroyers, so I'm guaranteed of meeting one of them in the ACAP. This might be good advice. Okay, so who's telling us that? Let's just check that first. It's the Kawachi. Where's the Kawachi? Oh, he's pushing forward. I think he's looking at those other ships moving in random directions. Okay, what's our stealth? Our detection range is pretty good. Oh, we're going to put on single fire. We're going to put on dual fire. Okay, I'm going to turn away just in case he enters the cap circle, which he has. Oh no, he hasn't. Okay. We've got the weaks. Can't complain about that. What's this guy here? Bit of a snapshot. Oh. Do I really want to... Okay. Okay. We just got to... Our torpedoes are back in the swing. He's turning in. Okay, then I think he's probably going to... Okay, we'll cut our speed. Okay. Job done. Oops. That hurt. Okay, we'll use the island to shield us. We'll force him to manoeuvre. Got another torpedo hit. What's this Kaiser doing? He's moving in. Yep. Does he know how to steer? Okay. Well, the South Carolina knows how to steer. Okay, where's my... Okay, what have I got here? The Tenryu. Ouch, that hurts. Okay, we'll force him to swing out. Oh, we've got a Tenryu, he's sunk. Got a good team here. Okay. So what I'm doing here is I'm just using this to break the lock. There we go. So he's going to move in. He's probably going to steer. See, by turning in, I probably should have fired my torpedoes in a different configuration. Okay. Okay, he is going to try and take the cap. So where is his guns? His guns are facing out to his left or my right. Okay, I don't think we can save the cap. Oh. If we get a couple of hits on him. 13 seconds before my smoke comes back and online. 7 seconds before I get the full complement of torpedoes. And let's give him a full swing. I've got to admit that I prefer a tight grouping. We've got one battleship left to go. So I must admit I'm not a big fan of the single firing. Actually, I probably would have just fired them. That spread's pretty tight actually, so it's a pretty good spread. There we go, that's what the spread looks like. I'm pretty happy with that. Torpedo angles, they've got different angles for the different torpedo tubes. Okay. Just keep ourselves like, oh, I think someone's going to take him out before I get to him. Well, at tier 3 it's pretty comfortable. One of the complaints I had of the tier 5, the Acaster, is the same complaint I have for the Gallant, and that is that when you fire the single fire torpedoes, they ripple fire off the different racks, and unless the rack's empty it won't reload, so you actually end up having to do quite a lot of fiddly management or just dumping all your torpedoes out to get the reload process underway. So yep, so there we go. Got 2 kills, 3 caps, that will be what gave me the points. Obviously can't do the same damage as a battleship. Let's have a look with 34 torpedo hits, 34 main battery hits. The main battery is, well, it's there to do something between times really. The 9 torpedo hits is where most of the work was done, as is proper with a torpedo destroyer, I suppose. So that is the tier 3 Valkyrie. What does it tell us about the British destroyer line? Well, fuel smoke is in, ripple fire is in, but I'd have to say that it doesn't quite, it feels a little more, it feels different from the Gallant, which is the tier 6 premium, and the Acaster, which is the tier 5 tech tree, and mainly because with the dual launchers and the quick reload, the torpedo management is not the same issue. So that's really about it. So it is a torpedo boat, relatively good stealth torpedo boat. Yeah, with some nice tricks with smoke at that tier is a pretty good thing to have. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching it. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.